What if a video less than a minute long, captured without any intention of shaking the world, suddenly became the spark for mass panic, cross-border discussions, and the collective imagination of millions about a figure who hasn't even appeared on stage yet? What if what was leaked wasn't a song, a schedule, or an official announcement, but something long considered trivial? The perspective from a stadium seat. The question sounds exaggerated, almost academic in its absurdity, until armies around the world realized that what they were seeing was not just a three-tiered concrete bench, but the most tangible possibility of how close Jungkook would stand before them. It all started quietly, without a press release, clarification, or sensational flair. A post from the fan account at @MyRunnersFirstArmy on Platform X appeared on the timeline, initially like ordinary reference content often shared ahead of a major concert. No bombastic title, no exclusive claim. Just two short video clips showing the view from general seating at Goyang Stadium, taken in June 2025 during J-Hope's solo concert, Hope on the Stage final at the same venue. Yet it was precisely in this simplicity that something felt unusual. The first video showed a massive LED screen glowing red in the distance, the crowd slowly filling the stadium, and low-hanging cloudy skies as if holding their breath. The second, shot from a different angle, presented a wider panorama, the sunset sweeping across the stands, and suddenly the scale of the stadium felt no longer abstract. It was no longer a capacity number, no longer a seating chart on paper, but a tangible human perspective. And here, collective awareness began to work. Army did not just watch. They measured distances. They imagined sightlines. They projected the BTS World Tour Arirang stage onto a recording that had never been intended for that purpose. Within hours, the comments section transformed from simple thank you notes into an intense, emotional discussion space, and for some, near irrational panic. "Wait, if from here it's already this close," wrote one user. "Imagine Jungkook standing center stage," replied another. These sentences spread, were repeated, translated, and eventually formed one large narrative. This seat view leaked, and its implications were too big to ignore. What made this situation even more intriguing was the timing. BTS hadn't started the tour. Official seat maps hadn't been released. Big Hit Music and HYBE were still holding back technical details that normally serve as primary reference points for fans. In this vacuum of official information, the video took on a role never intended as a semi-empirical reference. The seats shown, General S3F Side W5 Row 22 for June 13, 2025, and General R3F Side E9 Row 13 for June 14, 2025, suddenly became serious objects of analysis, not because of any special status, but because they offered something rare: a concrete visual experience. Goyang Stadium itself is no stranger to the K-pop concert landscape. The venue has long been known as an iconic location for large-scale shows, with a capacity of up to 30,000 spectators per session. Yet for many international fans, Goyang had mostly been a point on the map and an aerial photo online. @MyRunnersFirstArmy's video changed that. The stadium now had emotional dimensions. It was no longer just a container. It had become a space where the meeting between idol and fan would occur within a distance that could be measured, imagined, and felt. This is where Jungkook enters, even though his name wasn't explicitly mentioned in the initial post. He appeared as a collective shadow, a projection of all possibilities. Armies did not merely see an empty stage. They saw Jungkook standing there, singing, moving, gazing toward the stands. The awareness that the stage already appeared this close, even from the third tier, sparked an emotional reaction that defied logic. For fans, it wasn't about camera angles or video quality. It was about hope, expectation, and dreams that had until now existed only on a phone screen. The phenomenon also revealed something deeper about modern fandom culture. Information no longer flows unidirectionally from organizers to audience. It moves horizontally, organically, and often unpredictably. An archive video from another concert could transform into a predictive tool, even a source of emotional tension. Armies, known for their analytical skills and global coordination, quickly linked these pieces of information to the BTS concert schedule for April 9, 11, and 12, 2026. They imagined journeys, calculated timing, even adjusted ticket purchasing strategies based on visuals that might not have been fully relevant, yet felt incredibly real. There's an interesting irony here. On one hand, the post was intended as practical assistance, complete with transportation access info like Daewoo Station Line 3 and Kintex GTXA Station. On the other hand, its emotional impact far exceeded that initial function. It triggered waves of discussion about proximity, immersive experience, and the possibility of seeing Jungkook not as a figure on an LED screen, but as a human being standing right in front of their eyes. And in fandom, such imagination carries explosive power. When BTS Arirang tour presale tickets reportedly sold out within minutes, the video seemed to gain additional validation. The small panic in the comment section now made sense, not only because of high demand, but because a visualization had already been planted in fans' minds. They were no longer buying tickets to watch a BTS concert. They were buying the possibility of a specific experience, standing or sitting in a certain corner at a certain distance from Jungkook. A small leaked detail had changed the way millions of people interpreted a concert that hadn't even started. And perhaps this is the greatest surprise.
No escândalo, no violation, no dramatica não se mente.
There was only a perspective from a stadium seat. Yet from that perspective, armies worldwide began to panic, not out of fear, but from the sudden awareness that a dream that had once seemed distant now had a measurable distance. If it feels this close from the general seats, then what would it feel like when Jungkook truly stands there? That question hangs unanswered, and it is precisely for that reason that it has become the center of all the restlessness and excitement now enveloping Goyang Stadium. Even before a single note has been played, it didn't take long for the short video uploaded by Manifest Army to spread across the entire ARMY community. Within hours, the few-second clip was shared thousands of times, translated into multiple languages, and analyzed with almost scientific precision. Every frame, every angle, every background detail became a serious topic of discussion, far beyond ordinary entertainment. Fans began debating the visual distance between the seat and the stage, the perspective of the LED screens, the lighting positions, and even the projected movements of Jungkook. The phenomenon resembled a social experiment, where perception, imagination, and expectation converged in an organized emotional explosion. What is most fascinating is how this shaped what could be called anticipatory tension. Armies around the world were not just watching the video. They were undergoing a mental simulation of the upcoming concert. They imagined themselves sitting in the third-tier seats, feeling the energy of tens of thousands of spectators around them, hearing their own hearts race as the music began, and seeing Jungkook standing on stage, not as an abstract figure on a screen, but as a real human being present before them. The seemingly simple video had now become an emotional map, guiding millions through an intense and personal virtual experience. This phenomenon also highlights a new dynamic in the interaction between idols and fandom. In the past, leaks or concert previews typically came from official media, interviews, or carefully orchestrated press releases. Today, sources of information can come from any fan account, and the effects can be far more powerful. This stadium seat video, although just footage from a previous J-Hope concert, had an impact even stronger than official announcements. It created urgency, panic, and curiosity simultaneously. Armies were not only reacting to what they saw, they were reacting to what could happen, and for the first time that possibility felt palpably real. Reactions on social media demonstrated the psychological strength of this effect. On Twitter, X, and various international forums, comment sections were flooded with detailed analysis. Camera angles, the direction of sunlight, even stage height estimates. Discussions evolved from simple information sharing to strategic debates. Which seats were ideal, which angles offered the best visuals, and which transportation routes were fastest. All with a single shared goal: to visualize Jungkook on stage and determine how to experience that as fully as possible. In the process, armies formed an intellectual and emotional community united by the same fascination, fueled by one small leak that initially seemed trivial. Beyond the emotional impact, this phenomenon carries economic and cultural implications that cannot be ignored. Tickets selling out in minutes is not only proof of BTS's popularity, but also evidence of the power of collective visualization created by this leaked information. Fans weren't buying mere access to a concert, they were buying the chance to be in the right spot, to see their idol from the perspective they deemed optimal. In other words, a few-second video could alter consumer behavior on a global scale, influence ticket purchasing strategies, and strengthen an already immense loyalty toward BTS. This phenomenon is a tangible demonstration of how digital experiences and visual information can shape the modern entertainment economy. Meanwhile, international media attention on the leak intensified. Rolling Stone described it as a new example of how modern fandom interprets physical space and concert experiences digitally, while various Korean news portals highlighted how ARMY anticipation reached unprecedented heights. Even South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, in a public speech, mentioned the BTS tour as a symbol of Korea's cultural resurgence post-pandemic, a statement indirectly acknowledging BTS's global influence, including the stadium seat leak phenomenon. Unintentionally, a locally specific video recording became a global phenomenon, bridging physical, emotional, and social experiences for fans across countries. The panic that arose was not purely due to excitement. There was a fear of missing out. ARMYs realized that the opportunity to see Jungkook from a particular angle, at a specific distance, might be extremely limited. The concept of FOMO, fear of missing out, intensified the emotional reaction. The video became a trigger that made millions of fans feel compelled to immediately plan their attendance, strategize ticket purchases, and even imagine experiences that had not yet occurred. That small leak, paradoxically, gave fans a sense of control while simultaneously increasing tension, as they knew the real experience could be far more spectacular than anything they could visualize. Another interesting aspect is the narrative dimension that spontaneously developed within the ARMY community. The leaked seat view became not just a visual focal point but a story element. Every comment, analysis, and projection became a new chapter in the collective narrative of how the Arirang concert would unfold. Fans built mental scenarios, added artistic details from prior experiences, compared it to other concerts, and imagined Jungkook's reactions to their interactions. In this process, the seat angle transformed from a physical detail into an emotional and aesthetic symbol, a representation of a highly anticipated and idealized experience. Furthermore, this phenomenon reveals a new way of understanding the relationship between physical and digital. Goyang Stadium, home to thousands of spectators and a massive stage, became a laboratory of imagination where ARMYs combined past experiences with future predictions. The leaked video provided visual data, enabling fans to strategize, visualize positions, and anticipate their emotional experience. In other words, the leaked stadium seat became an interactive tool for building expectations, reinforcing loyalty, and creating a deeper emotional attachment than simply receiving official news or watching teaser videos. Herein lies the power of this phenomenon. It unites logic, emotion, and imagination in a single moment. One stadium seat angle, one brief video, has created a deep, intense, and personal collective experience for millions of fans. Every frame is not just an image. It is a window into possibilities, a tool to feel something that hasn't yet occurred, and a driver for a global community to unite in shared anticipation. Without the concert starting, without a single note played, ARMYs already feel the same heartbeat, the same awe, and the same panic. This phenomenon is concrete proof of how information, perspective, and imagination can interact to create a unique and unprecedented cultural experience. When ARMYs gazed at that short video, they weren't just seeing a stadium seat. They saw themselves sitting there, imagining their hearts racing as the stage lights came on, as the first bass note reverberated, and as Jungkook appeared center stage, right before their eyes. The leaked seat view, which at first seemed simple, had transformed into an emotional portal. Each fan projected themselves into the scene, every imagination added a layer of tension, and every social media comment became a witness to a collective explosion rarely seen in the entertainment world. Panic didn't arise from threat, but from possibility, and that possibility felt too real to ignore. This phenomenon also shows how ARMYs turn information into a social experience. Discussions on forums, analyses of seat angles, and visual predictions of how Jungkook would perform formed a kind of ritual leading up to the concert. Millions of fans weren't just watching. They were feeling, speculating, and building a collective narrative that strengthened their emotional connection with their idol. Here, the difference between modern fandom and traditional audiences becomes clear. Simple information, a small leak, can fuel a globally structured emotional experience. It's no surprise that international media highlighted this phenomenon. Rolling Stone called it an example of how modern fandom interpolates physical space with digital experience to create collective tension. Even reports from South Korea emphasized how the leaked seat video changed fans' perceptions of stadium capacity and concert experience. President Yoon Suk-yeol also referenced the BTS tour as a symbol of Korea's post-pandemic cultural revival. Unknowingly, one short video had crossed local boundaries to become part of a global narrative, showcasing BTS's soft power. From music to the ability to create social phenomena, ARMY Panic was also rooted in the awareness that this opportunity wouldn't come twice. Pre-sale tickets sold out within minutes, intensifying the sense of urgency. They weren't just buying access to a concert, they were buying a specific experience. Sitting in a particular seat, seeing Jungkook from a precise angle, feeling the ARMY energy to the fullest. The leaked seat video offered an initial glimpse of that experience while simultaneously raising expectations that were almost unreal. The emotional implications were profound. A simple visual leak had changed the way millions prepared, imagined, and experienced the concert before a single note was played. Most strikingly, this phenomenon opened a new dimension in the interaction between humans, technology, and cultural experience. Goyang Stadium, through the leaked video, became a laboratory of imagination. Millions of fans projected themselves, devised strategies, and built a collective narrative of how the experience would unfold. The seat that once seemed ordinary had become an emotional and strategic symbol, a point where physical reality, emotional anticipation, and visual fantasy converged. And here is where the power of this phenomenon becomes clear. A single leaked seat angle is not merely viral content. It became a catalyst for collective experience, generating tension, hope, and anticipation that surpasses logic. ARMYs no longer wait for the concert to begin to feel it. They have already experienced it through video, comments, and mental visualization. This phenomenon proves one thing. In the era of global fandom, even small information can act as an emotional detonator, triggering an explosion of real, intense, and unforgettable experience.